As she turned back to look at Ada, she saw the confusion and fear on her daughter's face. "Mommy, don't leave me," Ada cried, reaching out to her mother. Amora, a dedicated single mother, was excited about taking her children, Ada and Chike, to visit her elderly parents. She had been looking forward to this trip for weeks, planning to introduce her children to their grandparents in the countryside. The road was long and winding, but the journey started off smoothly, with both kids eagerly chatting in the back seat. As they drove, the weather started to change. Dark clouds gathered overhead, casting an ominous shadow over the landscape. Amora glanced up, feeling a pang of unease as raindrops began to splatter against the windshield. Despite the worsening weather, she kept reassuring herself that they would soon reach their destination safely. The rain quickly intensified, becoming a relentless downpour. Visibility dropped, and Amora tightened her grip on the steering wheel, carefully maneuvering through the increasingly treacherous road. Her children had fallen silent, sensing the tension in the air. Little did they know that this journey would forever change their lives. The rain became a torrential flood, hammering against the car with a ferocity that made Amora's heart race. The road ahead was barely visible, obscured by sheets of rain and swirling water. She could feel the car struggle as it hydroplaned, her hands sweating as she tried to keep control. Suddenly, the car hit a patch of water, skidding out of control. Amora screamed as the vehicle swerved wildly, veering off the road and crashing into a ditch filled with rapidly rising water. Her children shrieked in terror, clinging to each other as the car came to a jolting halt. Amora's mind raced with panic and fear. She knew they were trapped, with the floodwaters rising fast around them. Every instinct told her to get her children out, but the water was already at knee level, and she could feel the pressure mounting. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself as she began to think about how to save her family. As water seeped into the car, Amora quickly unbuckled her seatbelt, her movements shaky and frantic. She turned to look at her children, their faces pale with fear. Ada, her eldest, clutched Chike tightly, her eyes wide and filled with tears. Amora's heart broke at the sight, but she had to act fast. "Stay calm, babies. Mommy's going to get us out," she said, trying to sound reassuring. She glanced out the window and realized the floodwaters were even higher than she thought. The current outside was strong, and she knew it would be difficult to wade through, especially with both children. Her heart raced as she considered her options. The thought of leaving one child behind, even for a moment, terrified her. But with the water rising so quickly, she knew she had to prioritize safety. She made a difficult decision: she would take Chike out first, as he was the youngest and needed her help more urgently. Amora leaned over and gently lifted Chike into her arms, his small body trembling against her. He looked up at her with scared, trusting eyes, and she could feel his fear. She whispered words of comfort, telling him everything would be okay, even though doubt filled her heart. As she turned back to look at Ada, she saw the confusion and fear on her daughter's face. "Mommy, don't leave me," Ada cried, reaching out to her mother. The sound of her daughter's desperate voice tore at Amora's soul, but she knew she had no choice. She promised Ada she would be back as soon as possible. Steeling herself, Amora climbed out of the car with Chike, braving the cold, swirling water. She focused on keeping her footing steady, fighting against the powerful current. Her only goal was to get Chike to a safe place so she could return for Ada. With each step, the water rose higher, making it harder for Amora to push through. Chike clung to her, burying his face into her shoulder, his little hands clutching her tightly. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her as she struggled to reach the higher ground. When she finally found a safe spot away from the rushing water, she gently set Chike down. "Stay here, baby. Mommy will be right back," she told him, brushing his wet hair from his face. He looked up at her with worried eyes, but he nodded, his faith in her unshaken. Amora turned back toward the car, her heart pounding. She knew Ada was waiting, trapped in the rising water. She had to get back to her daughter as quickly as possible. Ignoring the exhaustion in her limbs, she began to fight her way through the water, her only thought to reach Ada in time. As Amora approached the car, she could see Ada's face pressed against the window, her eyes wide with terror. The water inside the car had risen to her waist, and she was desperately calling out for her mother. The sight broke Amora's heart, but she forced herself to stay focused. "Mommy's coming, Ada. Hold on," Amora shouted, pushing herself to move faster. The current was stronger now, nearly knocking her off balance. She knew every second counted, but she also understood the risk she was taking with each step she took. Ada's cries grew louder as Amora reached the door. She struggled to open it against the water pressure, her hand slipping as she fought with the handle. Every fiber of her being was focused on getting her daughter out, even as doubt and fear gnawed at her mind. After what felt like an eternity, Amora managed to pry the door open. She reached inside, grabbing Ada's hand and pulling her close. The water was freezing, and Ada's body was shivering, her face pale with fear. Amora hugged her tightly, whispering words of comfort. But the moment was short-lived. The current outside was stronger than ever, making it almost impossible to stand. Amora struggled to keep her balance, her strength waning as she fought to keep both herself and Ada steady. She felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had already saved Jack, but getting both herself and Ada to safety felt almost impossible. Still, she refused to give up, her love for her daughter giving her the strength to keep trying. As Amora held Ada tightly, she realized the current was too powerful for her to make it back to where she had left Jack. She looked around, trying to find another path, but the water was relentless, surging around them with frightening intensity. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She might not be able to save them both. The thought made her feel sick, but she knew she had to make a choice. She couldn't risk losing them all, and the weight of that decision settled heavily on her shoulders. With tears streaming down her face, she whispered to Ada, "I love you, my brave girl. I will never forget you." Her heart shattered as she forced herself to let go, the hardest thing she had ever done. Amora stumbled back through the water, her mind numb with pain. She could still hear Ada's voice calling out for her, but she couldn't turn back. Every step felt like she was walking through fire, the agony of leaving her daughter behind consuming her. When she reached Jack, she collapsed beside him, pulling him close. She held him tightly, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. She had saved him, but at the cost of her daughter. The guilt and heartbreak weighed heavily on her, suffocating her in its intensity. As the rescue team arrived, Amora felt herself being lifted, both physically and emotionally. Yet, the loss of Ada would remain with her, a shadow haunting her every step. She knew that the hardest part was yet to come, living with her choice. As the rescue team pulled Amora and Jack to safety, her mind was still numb, replaying the haunting moments with Ada. She couldn't stop thinking about her daughter's still strict face and the sound of her desperate pleas. She wished she could have done more, that somehow, she could have saved them both. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was in turmoil. She had made an impossible choice, one no mother should ever have to face. She saved one child at the cost of the other, and now she had to live with the consequences. Every time she looked at Jack, she felt a pang of guilt, wondering if she had done the right thing. As she held Jack close, she tried to reassure herself. She had acted in the heat of the moment, driven by the instinct to save her young son. But the guilt lingered, a heavy shadow that would follow her long after the floodwaters receded. In the days following the tragedy, Amora struggled to come to terms with her loss. She barely slept, her nights filled with nightmares of Ada calling out to her. The scenes of that terrible day played over and over in her mind, each detail seared into her memory. Friends and family came to offer their condolences, but Amora felt like a ghost in her own home. She moved through each day in a haze, unable to find comfort in anyone's words. The weight of her decision bore down on her, threatening to crush her under its relentless pressure. One evening, when she was finally alone, Amora broke down completely. She wept, her body racked with sobs as she mourned the loss of her daughter. She cried for Ada, for the life she would never lead, and for the terrible choice she had been forced to make. She knew that this pain would be her burden to carry forever. As time passed, rumors began to circulate within the community. People speculated about the events of that fateful day, some whispering that Amora had chosen to save one child over the other. The weight of their judgment added another layer of pain to her already shattered heart. Amora noticed the sidelong glances and heard the hushed voices whenever she walked by. She felt like an outcast in her own town, surrounded by people who couldn't understand the impossible choice she had faced. The feeling of isolation grew, making her feel as if she were drowning all over again. She considered moving away, leaving behind the memories and the judgment, but she knew that her grief would follow her no matter where she went. Instead, she resolved to stay, to find a way to survive in a world where her daughter was gone and her son would one day understand the sacrifice she had made. Chike, once a vibrant and joyful child, became withdrawn in the weeks after the accident. He rarely spoke, his once bright eyes now filled with a deep sadness that Amora found unbearable to witness. She worried that he blamed her, that he somehow knew about the decision she had made. Amora tried to comfort him, to be there for him in every way possible, but Chike's silence was impenetrable. He refused to talk about Ada, and when she brought up his sister's name, he would turn away, his face a mask of pain. It was as if he had locked his feelings away, creating a wall between them. The distance between them grew, and Amora felt helpless. She wanted to bridge the gap, to bring her son back to her, but she didn't know how. She feared that she had not only lost Ada but was now losing Chike as well. Unable to find peace within herself, Amora sought help from a local counselor, hoping to unburden her heart. She poured out her soul, sharing every detail of that fateful day, the fear, the desperation, and the guilt that consumed her. The counselor listened patiently, offering her a safe space to grieve. For the first time, Amora allowed herself to speak openly about her choice. She described the moment she knew she couldn't save them both, the agony of leaving Ada behind, and the crushing guilt that followed. She knew that no one could absolve her, but sharing her pain brought a small measure of relief. Through therapy, she began to understand that she had acted out of love, driven by her maternal instinct to save at least one of her children. The guilt remained, but she slowly started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to forgive herself. One night, as Amora drifted into a restless sleep, she had a vivid dream of Ada. In the dream, Ada appeared to her, bathed in a soft, comforting light. She looked at her mother with a gentle smile, her eyes filled with understanding and peace. Amora reached out, feeling tears run down her cheeks as she tried to touch her daughter. "I'm so sorry, Ada. I didn't want to leave you," she whispered, her heart breaking all over again. But Ada simply looked at her with love, as if to say that she understood. When Amora awoke, she felt a strange sense of peace, as if Ada had come to offer her forgiveness. She knew it might have just been a dream, but the experience brought her a small measure of comfort. She clung to it, hoping that one day, she could find the strength to forgive herself as well. Amora visited Ada's grave, a place she had avoided for so long. She knelt by the headstone, tears streaming down her face as she whispered apologies and words of love. She poured out her heart, telling Ada how much she missed her, how sorry she was, and how she would carry her memory forever. In that quiet moment, Amora felt a sense of peace settle over her. She knew that Ada would want her to live, to cherish the life she still had with Chike. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that Ada might forgive her, that perhaps her daughter understood the choice she had made. Amora left the grave that day with a lighter heart. She would never stop grieving for Ada, but she began to find hope in the knowledge that her daughter's spirit would always be with her, guiding her through life. Months turned into years, and Amora and Chike continued to heal together. They created new memories, honoring Ada's memory while building a life filled with love. Amora found peace in the knowledge that she had done the best she could, that she had saved one child when faced with an impossible choice. Amora whispered a silent promise to her daughter, vowing to keep her memory alive, to live fully, and to protect Chike with all her heart. She knew that she would carry Ada with her forever, in every breath, every heartbeat, and every step she took. Thank you, wonderful listeners, for listening to this story. I'd really appreciate it if, after enjoying this story, you could take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. Your support means a lot and helps encourage me to keep sharing more stories. Thank you.